understand the debt capital, a very small topic. It is also known as a debenture. Popularly in the market and in the study, rather than the debt capital, students and many professionals recognize it as a debenture. Debenture is one medium of getting the finance or a fund. You may say a borrowed capital too, right? Question is that whether the word debenture is defined under the Companies Act. Remember, debenture is a borrowed capital. So if the company can borrow the fund, company can issue the debenture, right? So the question is that whether the word debenture is defined under the Companies Act. Yes, section 2 clause 30 of the Companies Act 2013 define the word debenture, and it reads as debenture means debenture stock. However, it is in the definition written as a stock, and many students understand stock means inventory. But remember, stock means an inventory under the accounting, not under the Companies Act. Here, the stock means either debenture stock or a stock certificate. I will explain in detail about the debenture stock little later on. Definition of a debenture suggests that debenture means debenture stock. Bond. Many institutes declare or issue the bond, right? It is also known as a debenture bond, right? Or any other instrument. Remember, any other instrument which is evidencing the debt. So the core emphasis of the definition is on the debt. If any instrument creating the debt, it is known as a debenture, right? Let me read the definition once again from the beginning to the end so that it will give you the good idea. Debenture means any debenture stock, bond, or any other instrument. Other instrument means other than the stock and bond, which is evidencing the debt, whether it is creating the charge or not on the asset of the company. Now, after reading this entire definition, one can understand that debenture can be either the secured debenture or unsecured debenture. See, it is a definition which provides the option on the part of a company to issue either a secured debenture or an unsecured debenture. Now, as I said to you, there is a little difference between the debenture and the debenture stock, right? So what is that difference? Remember, the company cannot issue the debenture stock at the first instance or directly. Company will first issue the debenture if the debenture is fully paid up. Then it may be converted into the debenture stock, right? The main difference between the debenture and the debenture stock is that debenture is recognized by way of a number. If you ask someone that how many debenture you are having or you are possessing of this company, he will say, I am having a 10 debenture, 50 debenture, 100 debenture. But on the other hand, the debenture stock is recognized by way of amount or value. If you ask someone that how many amount of a debenture stock you are having, he will say, I am having a debenture stock of rupees 50,000. So, company can issue the debenture stock, but the debenture should be fully paid up, then it is converted into the debenture stock, right? Debenture include the debenture stock, debenture bond, or simply the bond, or any other instrument creating the charge on the asset of the company or not. And therefore we can say that any instrument which is creating the debt is the debenture, right? Or it is known as a debt instrument or debt capital, right? Now, let us understand what are the different types of debenture. Classification of a debenture. You may say category of a debenture. We can classify the debenture into the following four categories. The category number 1 is the classification of a debenture on the basis of the conversion. On the basis of the conversion, right? So on this basis, the debenture can be classified as NCD, non-convertible debenture. Remember, this kind of a debenture will remain as a debenture. It will not be converted into any kind of a shares, and it has to be redeemed by the company after some time or on the happening of some event. On the other hand, the second category under this classification is that PCD, partly convertible debenture, right? Here, all the debenture of a particular holder will not be converted into the shares, but a part of the debenture he is holding will be converted into the shares. Say for example, the debentures are issued in the 100 lot, right? 100 in numbers. It is a partly convertible. So the 50 debenture will be converted in a shares and 50 debenture will remain as a debenture, which will be retained or redeemed by the company, right? So partly convertible debenture, the part of the debenture will be converted into the shares, right? The third category is a fully convertible debenture, FCD, right? Where all the debenture of the holder will be converted into the shares either on the expiry of a fixed time limit or on the happening of some event. Say for example, company has issued a debenture with the terms and condition that this debenture will be converted into the equity shares after the period of 5 years, right? So on the expiry of 5 years, this debenture, FCD, fully convertible debenture, will be converted into the equity shares. And the fourth is a little unique in terms of a market. It is OFCD, optional fully convertible debenture. If you are aware and if you have heard about the Sahara issue, Sahara Group, Subrat Roy, entire issue, Sahara Group of company was based upon the OFCD. Now here, the debenture is a fully convertible, but the conversion will take place on the exercise of the option by the debenture holder. So if I am a debenture holder, I need to exercise my option. On exercise of the option, the debenture will be converted into the shares, right? So the first category of a classification is on the basis of the conversion, right? Category number 2, and that is the classification based upon the security. From the definition, we have concluded that debenture can be either secured or unsecured, right? So then there are the two categories of a debenture, secured debenture or unsecured debenture. Debenture is said to be the secured when some security is created on the asset of the company for the purpose of its repayment. For the purpose of its repayment, that you may say a redemption, right? The unsecured debenture is a debenture, a little risky, because no security is created for the purpose of its repayment or redemption, right? So if somebody asks you to compare between the secured and the unsecured debenture, the risk is the main factor which distinguish the secured and the unsecured, right? Usually the good company issue the debenture with the security. The category number 3 classification is the classification of a debenture on the basis of redemption. On the basis of redemption, the debenture can be classified as a redeemable debenture or irredeemable debenture. A redeemable debenture means, redeem means pay back the original amount. So in the case of a redeemable debenture, the original amount will be paid back to the debenture, right? On the the happening of the some event or after the expiry of a fixed period. On the other hand, the irredeemable debenture is a debenture which is not redeemable during the lifetime of a company. See, the number of students and the professional have a misunderstanding. They always say that irredeemable means never redeem. Yes, it is never redeemed. But when the company goes in a liquidation, the payment is to be made, right? And irredeemable debenture is the very popular source in a foreign market, right? USA, UK. One more thing, the irredeemable debenture is the long-term source of the finance, right? Because until the company goes in a liquidation, you can enjoy this money. But as an investor, the less number of people are interested in an irredeemable debenture, right? The fourth category of a classification on the types of a debenture is on the basis of a registration. Remember, whenever I am saying registration, it does not mean that the company is required to register the debenture with the registrar of a company. Company, when enter the records of the debenture and the debenture holder into the register of a debenture, it is known as a registered debenture. When the company has a record entered into its books or into the register of a debenture holder, it is known as a registered debenture holder. On the other hand, opposite to that is a bearer debenture holder. Like it is a bearer instrument. And I hope you understand about the bearer check or a bearer instrument. If the person changed the possession, if the person changed the hand, with the change in the hand, there is a change in the ownership. So say for example, I am giving the possession of the bearer debenture to you. Now you are having a possession. So now with the change in the possession, the ownership is transferred from me to you. Now you are the owner of this debenture. Now bearer debenture is a little risky because if the instrument is lost, the finder will claim the owner to be the instrument or to be of the instrument, right? So debenture is one of the source of a finance. You will ask me, sir, what about the share? Why the company will not issue the shares and why the company will prefer to issue the debenture? Remember, the Companies Act and the finance provide the option to the company and to its management that whether you would like to get the capital through the shares or you would like to get the capital through the debenture or by the both the method, right? So here what we can do, we can compare between the debenture and the shares, right? This kind of a comparison can also be asked in an exam. Debenture is the kind of a loan, right? While the share is basically the capital, right? On the debenture, interest is paid, right? On the shares, dividend is paid. Now with regard to the interest which is paid or payable on the debenture, there is a fixed rate of interest. But on the dividend which is paid or which is declared, it is always changing or varying, right? Whether the company is having a profit or not, interest is payable. Whether the company is having a profit or not, interest is always payable on the debenture holder. But the dividend is payable when the company is having a profit, right? So we can say that dividend is charged against the profit, right? debenture is not having a voting right. While on the other hand, the shares, especially the equity shares, remember what I am speaking, equity shares do have a voting right. For the purpose of a debenture trustee, appointment of a debenture trustee is a compulsory. But when the company issue the shares, appointment of share trustee is not compulsory. So there is a lot of difference between the debenture and the shares, right? As compared to the debenture, the shares are still very popular mean of the finance. But when the company do not want the interference or involvement of the people, and even though they want a capital or a money, the company used to issue the debenture as compared to the shares, right? You may note down the points. We will go to the next part.